Hello, this is Lisa with Old Orchid Yarnery, and I'm here today to show you how to do the June knit square for our block party. We're going to be making a mitered square this month. As you can see, it is a garter stitch square with a diagonal line going down the center. That's the miter. We're actually going to work it from this direction. We're going to start at this corner, and we're going to go out and then back again. You'll see how it works. It's really very clever and fun to do. You can do a lot of different things with mitered squares. There's a very popular pattern going around right now. I can't remember what it's called, but you use leftover scraps and make smaller mitered squares out of sock yarn or sock yarn held double or DK weight, and you can just do a whole bunch of the squares, and then the pattern has you attaching them as you go so that you don't have to make a bunch of squares and then put them all together later. But for now, we're going to be making a larger size mitered square to fit in with our other squares that we've been making so far this year. Mine have been about 9 inches square. Remember, whatever your first square was that you did, that's your target for the size for your remaining squares. So you'll have to just check your own gauge. One thing that I did learn is after I made this one is I've been using size 8 needles on the yarn I've been using, which is the Sueño from Haiku. It's a merino bamboo blend, and garter stitch is a lot looser than stockinette or some other stitches, and so it tends to really stretch a lot. And so I used a size 8 needle for this sample, but for the one I'm going to show you today, I'm going down a needle size to a size 7 because I don't want it to be quite as loose. I want it to be a little more firm. So there's not really a written pattern for a mitered square. I will write something up for you and give it to you when we have our meetup. But all you're going to do is we're going to cast on the number of stitches we want for one side times 2. So for me, I cast on 70 stitches. And again, I'm using a US 7 needle for this particular square. I've been using a US 8 for our prior squares. So I cast on 70 stitches on my needle. If you're using the long tail cast on, for me, that was 2 arm lengths of yarn. Gave me 70 stitches with a bit of a tail left. So that works. So all we're going to do, again, it's garter stitch. So really what happens is we're going to knit half of our stitches, we're going to place a marker, knit the other half of our stitches, and then we'll start doing the magic at that marker. So go ahead and cast on your number of stitches. For me, for this square, it was 70, and knit half of them. I'm going to knit 35, and then I'm going to place a marker. I'll be right back at the end of the row. All right, I have knit across my 70 stitches that I cast on. I knit halfway to 35, and then I put a stitch marker on, and then knit the rest of the way. The mitered square is going to be a 2-row repeat that you're going to repeat the entire time until you have 4 stitches left on your needle. The first row we just did, we knit, and then the second row, we're going to knit to just before the marker. We're going to do a knit 2 together. We're going to slip the marker, and we're going to do a slip, slip, knit, and knit to the end. Then we'll knit back, and then we'll come back again and knit to the marker, knit 2 together, slip the marker, do a slip, slip, knit. Let me show you how that works. It's a really easy pattern, and it's kind of fun to do as you begin to watch the mitered square being formed. I remember the name of that blanket I was talking about a minute ago. It's called the Cozy Memories blanket, I believe. And it's, again, sock weight yarn, or sometimes you can hold sock weight yarn double for it and use leftover bits. All right, so I have already knit across. I cast on 70 stitches for me. I'm using a US 7 needle. Knit my 70 stitches, placing a marker in the middle. And now I'm just going to knit to 1 stitch before my, 2 stitches before my marker. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing decreases on each side of that marker as we continue through this pattern. The reason we're doing a knit 2 together on one side and a slip, slip, knit on the other side is as it causes the decrease to be angled in a certain direction. It's really an aesthetic thing. If you wanted to, you could just do the same decrease on each side, but you wouldn't have the same look. So we're going to go ahead and knit to 2 stitches before the marker. Now you might find that this mitered square this month is a little bit of a resting block because it's not difficult to do. I hope that you'll find that the stitches are easy. The main thing is just keeping track of if you're on the decrease row or the plain knit row. You can either write that down, or sometimes you can just look at your knitting when you get to the marker and see if the last row you did was a decrease or not. All right, I'm almost to the marker. So we'll do a couple more till I have 2 stitches before the marker. One more. And now all we're going to do here is we're going to knit 2 together. Again, we're doing a decrease on each side of the marker. So here I'm going to knit 2 together. Oops, without splitting my yarn, hopefully. Knit 2 together. Then I'm going to slip my marker, and I'm going to do a slip, slip, knit. If you haven't done a slip, slip, knit before, you slip the stitch as if you're going to knit it. So I insert my needle as if I'm going to knit it, but I just slip it to the right needle. I slip the second one the same way. So I have them both over here on my right needle now. And now I'm just going to put the left needle tip in to the front, and I'm going to knit them. That's a slip, slip, knit. And then we're going to knit to the end. So what you'll begin to see forming, and I'll come back in a few minutes after I've done a few rows and show you, is you're going to begin seeing the edges of this pull together because of those decreases, and that's what's creating that mitered diagonal across the middle of the block. All right, go ahead and knit to the end, and then the second row you're going to knit back again, knit without any decreases. I am on my plain knitting row now because the row before that I just showed you, we did the decrease on either side of the marker. And I wanted to just show you how you can tell if you can't keep track, if you're not writing it down, if you're on a decrease row or not. I know that right before my marker, if you can see here, let me undo this one. So a normal stitch, because I'm doing garter, you're going to see a purl bump right here. One purl bump on the side looking at me. But the stitch right before the marker, if you notice, it has 2. Because that was where I did the decrease last row. So I know that when I see those 2 purl bumps sitting there, that I'm on a regular knit row. I'm not doing any decreases. So I'll go ahead and knit that. I'll slip my marker. Now here's the other side. And again, you can see that there are 2 purl bumps in here. This one's a little harder to see, but there's one there and one right under it there. So that tells me that this was a decrease row. So I know that I'm just knitting now. Get that in frame a little better for you. So there's my 2 purl bumps on that stitch. So I know that I already decreased the last row, so this is just a plain knitting row. So I'm just going to knit. So again, we're just going back and forth. We're doing a row where we do a decrease on either side of the marker, a knit 2 together on one side, slip the marker, and then a slip, slip, knit on the other. And then the next row we just knit. And then we do the decrease row where we knit up to 2 stitches before the marker, knit 2 together, slip the marker, then do a slip, slip, knit. And you'll keep doing that back and forth until you have 4 stitches remaining on your needle. And you will magically begin to see your mitered square start to form. I'll be back in a few minutes and show you. All right, just coming back to check in for a few minutes, show you how it's coming together. So you can see now that as I've done my decreases on one row and knit straight on the other row, that it's starting to form this pulling in the middle. It's starting to form that diagonal miter going across the square. So you can see, if I put it just on the cords, how it's going to be forming. So this will be one side of the square, this will be the other side of the square, and this diagonal will go all the way across. Something else I thought about, if you want to help keep track of which row you're going to decrease on, is on the decrease row, you can put a little stitch marker at the beginning of the round. And then you know when you're starting that round, this is a decrease round. And then when you get to the other side and you have no stitch marker there, you know this is just a knit straight round. So just another tip. So this is what your square is going to look like when you're done. Here's that miter that's beginning to form. So you can see right here, this is where I'm at. And it just started with a straight cast on of, for me, 70 stitches, putting that marker in the middle and then doing the decrease every other round on either side of the marker is going to form that diagonal that's going to go right up the center. Have fun with it. If I get this one done in time, I will come back and show you how it looks at the end.